Have you ever felt like you were trying so hard to learn English, but nothing is changing? You watch videos, you read books, you try to remember words, but when the moment comes to speak, your mind goes blank. You feel stuck, you feel slow. You feel like maybe this is not for you, and that feeling hurts more than the mistakes. Maybe you compare yourself to others. Maybe you think they are smarter. Maybe you think you are late, but deep inside, there is still a small voice that says, I want to speak. I want to understand. I want to change my life. This video is for that voice. Today, I will show you something very simple. Not hard rules, not big grammar, just a simple way. A daily way. A way that fits your life, not fights your life. Comment if you've ever felt this way. And if you stay with me till the end, you will not just learn English. You will feel different. You will feel stronger. And you will finally see a clear path forward. Chapter 1. The problem is not you. There was a time when I also felt stuck. I remember sitting with a book in my hand, looking at the words, and feeling tired. Not in my body, but in my mind. I was reading, but I was not feeling anything. The words were there, but they were not alive. And slowly, I started thinking, maybe I am not good at this. Maybe English is too hard for me. If you have ever felt this, then listen carefully. The problem is not you. Yes, I will say it again. The problem is not you. Most people think they are the problem. They think they are slow. They think they are not smart enough. They think they don't have talent. But this is not true. The real problem is the way you are trying to learn. From the beginning, many learners are taught in a way that makes learning heavy. Too many rules, too many words, too much pressure. And when your brain feels pressure, it does not open. It closes. Think about a child. A child does not learn by studying grammar first. A child listens. A child plays. A child repeats. And slowly, without fear, language becomes natural. But you were told to be perfect. And that is where the pain started. Because when you try to be perfect, you become silent. You stop speaking because you are afraid of mistakes. You stop trying because you think you need more time. You keep waiting, and waiting, and waiting. And one day, you realize you are still in the same place. This is the moment where many people give up. But not you, because today, you are here. You are still trying. And that means something inside you is still alive. Something inside you still believes. And that belief is powerful. Here is something important you need to understand. Learning English is not about learning everything. It is about using small things again and again until they become part of you. You do not need 10,000 words to start speaking. You need 10 words used daily. You do not need perfect grammar to express yourself. You need simple sentences, used with confidence. This is the simple way. But your mind may say, is it really that easy? And I understand that doubt, because we were trained to think that hard things give big results. But sometimes, simple things, done daily, give the biggest results. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. The people who become fluent are not always the smartest. They are not always the fastest learners. They are the most consistent. They show up every day, even when they feel tired, even when they feel slow, even when they feel like nothing is changing. They still do something. And that something changes everything. You don't need to study for hours. You don't need to feel overwhelmed. You need a simple system, a daily action, a small step. Because small steps done daily become a big transformation. Right now, you may feel behind. You may feel like others are better than you. But listen to this carefully. You are not behind. You are just starting your real journey now. And that is a powerful place to be. Because now, you will not learn in fear. You will not learn in pressure. You will learn in a new way, a simple way, a daily way. And slowly, English will stop feeling like a subject. It will start feeling like a part of your life. This is the shift. This is the moment. And this is just the beginning. So before we move forward, I want you to ask yourself one question. What if I stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be consistent? Because that one decision can change everything. Tell me, are you ready to try a different way? Chapter 2. Start small, but start now. There is a moment in every journey where everything feels clear. You understand what to do. You feel motivated. You feel ready. But then, you don't start. You wait. You tell yourself, I will start tomorrow. Or you say, I need more time. Or maybe you think, I am not ready yet. And slowly, that powerful moment disappears. Days pass, weeks pass, and nothing changes. If this feels familiar, you are not alone. Almost every learner faces this moment. Not because they are lazy, but because they are overwhelmed. Your mind is full. Too many ideas, too many methods, too many expectations. And when your mind feels too full, it stops moving. That is why the simple way begins with one powerful truth. Start small, but start now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. But when I say small, I really mean small. Not 1 hour, not 30 minutes, just 5 minutes. Yes, just 5 minutes. Your mind may say, 5 minutes is nothing. But that is the mistake. Because 5 minutes is not about time, it is about action. It is about breaking the wall inside your mind. Right now, your biggest problem is not English. Your biggest problem is starting. Once you start, everything changes. Let me show you something simple. Imagine you wake up in the morning. Your mind is quiet. Your day has not started yet. This is your moment. You don't open a book. You don't watch a long video. You just sit for a moment and you say 3 simple sentences in English. I wake up. I feel sleepy. I am starting my day. That's it. 3 sentences. Simple, easy, real. But something powerful happens in that moment. You are not learning English. You are using English. And that changes everything. Because learning is passive, but using is active. And your brain grows faster when you use, not when you only learn. This is the simple way. You don't wait to become perfect. You start with what you have. You use the words you already know. And slowly, those words become your voice. At first, it may feel strange. You may feel shy. You may feel like you are doing something silly. But that feeling is normal. That feeling is part of the process. Because you are doing something new. And new things always feel uncomfortable in the beginning. But here is the truth. Comfort does not create growth. Action creates growth. And action begins with small steps. Let me give you a powerful idea. You don't need motivation to start. You need a system. Because motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel strong. Some days you feel tired. Some days you feel inspired. Some days you feel empty. But a system stays. Your system is simple. Every day, speak 3 sentences. Every day, listen for 5 minutes. Every day, read something small. That's it. No pressure, no stress, just simple daily action. And here is the magic. When you do something small every day, your brain starts to accept it. It becomes normal. It becomes easy. And one day, you don't even think about it. You just do it. This is how habits are built, not by doing big things once, but by doing small things again and again. Let me tell you something that may change how you see yourself. You are not someone who is trying to learn English anymore. You are someone who practices English daily. Feel the difference. Trying feels weak. Practicing feels strong. Trying feels like waiting. Practicing feels like moving. And this identity shift is powerful. Because when you change how you see yourself, you change how you act. Right now, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to speak perfectly. You don't need to know everything. You just need to show up. Even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 3 sentences, even if your voice is slow, because slow is still progress. And here is a retention moment I want you to remember. Most people fail not because they are not capable, but because they never start small. They wait for the perfect time, but the perfect time never comes. So they stay where they are. But you are different. Because now you understand something simple. Big change does not come from big effort. It comes from small daily action. And once you accept this, you feel free. You don't feel pressure anymore. You don't feel fear anymore. You just feel ready. Ready to take one small step right now. So I want you to do something after this chapter ends. Not later. Not tomorrow. Today. Say 3 sentences in English about your life. It can be anything. I am watching this video. I want to improve my English. I am starting today. Simple, real, powerful. Because that moment is the beginning of your new journey. And once you begin, you are no longer stuck. You are moving. And movement creates confidence. So let me ask you something. Are you ready to take your first small step today? Chapter 3. Use English in your real life. There is a big mistake that many learners make. And maybe you are also making it without knowing. You treat English like a subject, like math, like something that only lives in books, in classes, or inside your phone. You open it, you study it, and then you close it. And when you close it, English disappears from your life. It becomes something separate, something outside you. And this is why progress feels slow. Because you are not living English, you are visiting it. And when you only visit something, you never truly become part of it. Let me ask you something simple. Do you think in your language only when you open a book? No. You think all day, you speak all day, you feel all day. Your language is not something you study. It is something you live. So why should English be different? This is where the real change begins. You stop treating English like a subject, and you start treating it like a part of your life. Not something extra, something natural. At first, this idea may feel big. You may think, how can I use English in my life? I don't know enough words. But listen carefully. You don't need many words to start living English. You only need awareness. You only need to notice your life and put simple English on it. Let me show you how simple this can be. You are sitting right now. Maybe you are watching this video. Maybe you are holding your phone. Maybe you are in your room. Just look around and say what you see. I am sitting. I have a phone. This is my room. Very simple, very small, but very powerful. Because in that moment, English is not outside you anymore. It is inside your life. And when English becomes part of your life, it becomes easier to remember. It becomes easier to use. It becomes easier to grow. Because your brain loves real things. Your brain remembers what you feel, what you see, what you do, not just what you study. This is why many people forget words quickly. They learn words from lists. They try to remember many meanings, but those words are not connected to their life. So the brain lets them go. But when you connect English to your real life, your brain holds it. Let me tell you something important. You don't need a perfect environment to learn English. You need to turn your environment into English. Your room can become your classroom. Your daily routine can become your lesson. Your life can become your teacher. Think about your morning. You wake up, you go to the bathroom, you eat breakfast, you get ready. These are simple actions, but they are full of English. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I eat breakfast, I drink tea. Every action is a sentence. Every moment is a chance. But most people miss these chances because they think learning only happens when they sit to study. And that belief keeps them stuck. Here is a retention moment I want you to feel deeply. The fastest learners are not the ones who study more. They are the ones who use English in small moments all day. Not one big session, many small connections. And these connections create something powerful. They create familiarity. When you see the same words again and again in your life, they stop feeling new. They stop feeling difficult. They start feeling normal. And when something feels normal, you stop being afraid of it. Fear disappears. Confidence grows. And slowly, you start thinking in English without trying. But let me be honest with you. In the beginning, it will feel strange. You may forget words. You may stop in the middle of a sentence. You may feel slow, but that is okay because you are building something new, and building takes time. But every small effort is working, even if you don't see it yet. Let me share a simple truth that many people don't understand. You don't become fluent by learning everything first. You become fluent by using small things again and again until they become automatic. Fluency is not about knowing more. It is about using what you know faster and easier. And that only happens when English becomes part of your daily life, not your study time, your life. So from today, I want you to do something different. Don't wait for a perfect moment. Use the moments you already have. When you walk, describe it. When you eat, describe it. When you feel something, say it in English. I am tired. I feel happy. I am thinking. Simple sentences. Real life, real connection. And slowly, something beautiful will happen. English will stop feeling like a task. It will start feeling like your voice. And when English becomes your voice, you don't need to force it. It comes naturally. It flows. And that is the moment you have been waiting for. So let me ask you something. Are you ready to stop visiting English and start living it? Chapter 4. Speak before you feel ready. There is a silent rule that many learners follow without even knowing it. A rule that sounds safe, but slowly stops all progress. The rule is simple. I will speak when I am ready. It feels logical. It feels smart. It feels like the right thing to do. But this rule is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck for years, because the truth is very different. You will never feel fully ready. Read that again in your mind. You will never feel fully ready. And if you keep waiting for that perfect moment, you will keep waiting forever. I have seen many learners who understand English. They know words. They watch videos. They read sentences. But when it is time to speak, they stay silent. Not because they cannot speak, but because they are afraid to speak. They think, what if I make a mistake? They think, what if people laugh? They think, what if I say it wrong? And these thoughts create a wall inside the mind, a strong wall. And behind that wall, your voice is trapped. But here is the truth that can change everything. Your voice is not weak. Your fear is loud. And once you understand this, you start to see your situation in a new way. You are not silent because you cannot speak. You are silent because you are protecting yourself. And that protection feels safe, but it is also stopping your growth because speaking is not the result of learning. Speaking is part of learning. Let me explain this in a very simple way. If you want to learn swimming, can you learn it by only reading about it? No. You need to enter the water. You may feel scared at first. You may feel uncomfortable. But that is how learning begins. The same is true for English. You don't wait to be perfect before you speak. You speak, and that is how you become better. This is the simple way. But I understand something. Starting to speak is not easy. Your heart beats faster. Your mind starts thinking too much. Your mouth feels slow. This is normal. It does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are stepping outside your comfort zone. And that is where growth lives. Let me give you a very simple starting point. You don't need people to start speaking. You can start alone. Yes, alone. You can talk to yourself. And I know this may sound strange, but it is one of the most powerful habits you can build. Because when you talk to yourself, there is no fear of judgment. No one is watching you. No one is correcting you. It is just you and your voice. You can say simple things like, I am sitting on a chair. I am watching a video. I want to improve. At first, your voice may feel slow. You may stop. You may repeat words. But something important is happening. You are breaking the silence. And once silence breaks, confidence begins. Here is a retention moment you need to remember deeply. Confidence does not come before speaking. Confidence comes because of speaking. Many people think they need confidence first, but confidence is built through action. Every time you speak, even one sentence, your brain learns something. It learns that speaking is possible. It learns that mistakes are not dangerous. It learns that you can try again. And slowly, your fear becomes smaller. Your voice becomes stronger. And one day, you realize something surprising. You are speaking without thinking too much. That is the moment when everything starts to change. But let me tell you something honestly. You will make mistakes. You will say wrong sentences. You will forget words. And that is not a problem. That is progress. Because every mistake shows you what to improve. And every correction makes you better. The only real mistake is staying silent. Because silence gives you nothing. No experience, no growth, no confidence, just waiting. And waiting does not change your life. Action does. So from today, I want you to change one simple belief. Don't say, I will speak when I am ready. Say, I will speak to become ready. This one change can open a new path for you. And that path is simple. Speak small, speak daily, speak freely, even if it is not perfect, even if it is slow, because slow speaking is still speaking. And speaking is your real goal. Not perfect English, not big vocabulary, not complex grammar. Your goal is to express yourself, to share your thoughts, to use your voice. And your voice is already inside you. It is not missing. It is just waiting. Waiting for you to stop overthinking and start speaking. So let me ask you something honestly. Are you ready to speak even if you are not ready? Chapter 5. Listening is your hidden superpower. There is something very quiet, but very powerful, that most learners ignore. It does not look exciting. It does not feel like hard work. And because of that, many people don't take it seriously. But this one thing can change your English faster than you think. That thing is listening. Yes, just listening. Now your mind may say, I already listen. I watch videos. But listen carefully. There is a big difference between hearing and truly listening. Hearing is passive. It just happens. But listening is active. It is focused. It is alive. And when you start listening the right way, your brain begins to change. Let me explain this in a very simple way. Before you can speak clearly, your brain needs to hear clearly. Before words come out of your mouth, they must first enter your mind. Think about a child again. A child listens for months before speaking full sentences. The child hears sounds, patterns, emotions. Slowly, those sounds become words. Those words become sentences. And then, speaking begins. But many learners try to skip this step. They want to speak fast, they want to sound perfect, but their brain has not received enough input. So speaking feels difficult. It feels forced. And that creates frustration. But when you listen daily, something beautiful starts to happen. Your brain begins to recognize patterns. You start hearing the same words again and again. Simple phrases start feeling familiar. And slowly, your brain starts predicting what comes next. This is a powerful moment. Because when your brain can predict, it can also produce. That is how speaking becomes easier. Now let me tell you the simple way to use listening. You don't need long videos. You don't need complex lessons. You need short, simple, repeatable content. Something you can listen to again and again. Maybe it is a short story. Maybe it is a small conversation. Maybe it is a simple explanation. The key is repetition. Yes, repetition. I know many people feel bored when they hear the same thing again. But listen carefully. Repetition is not boring. Repetition is building. Every time you listen again, your understanding becomes deeper. The first time you catch a few words. The second time, you understand more. The third time, you feel the sentence. And one day, you don't just understand it. You can say it. This is the hidden power of listening. And here is a strong retention moment you need to remember. The more you listen, the less you struggle to speak. Because your brain already knows the path. It already knows the sound. It already knows the flow. And speaking becomes natural, not forced. But there is something very important. You must listen with attention, not in the background, not while doing many other things. Give it a few minutes of full focus. Even 5 minutes can be powerful. Close your eyes if you want. Feel the words. Notice the sound. Let the language enter your mind. This is not just learning. This is absorption. And absorption creates fluency. Let me also tell you something that many people don't realize. Listening reduces fear. Yes, it reduces fear. Because when you hear English again and again, it stops feeling strange. It stops feeling foreign. It becomes familiar. And when something feels familiar, your brain feels safe. And when your brain feels safe, you become more confident. So listening is not just helping your speaking, it is also calming your mind. It is preparing you emotionally. It is making you ready without pressure. Now imagine this simple daily routine. You wake up, you say 3 sentences. Then you listen to a short audio for 5 minutes. Then later, you try to repeat 1 or 2 sentences from what you heard. Simple, easy, but very powerful. Because now you are doing 2 important things. You are using English and you are feeding your brain. This balance is the key. Without listening, your speaking becomes empty. Without speaking, your listening becomes passive. But when both work together, growth becomes fast. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. You don't need to understand everything you hear. Yes, you heard that right. You don't need to understand every word. Just understand the idea. Feel the sentence, catch what you can, and trust your brain. Because your brain is always learning, even when you don't notice it. This is how children learn. This is how natural learning happens. And this is how you will improve, step by step. So from today, I want you to respect listening. Don't treat it like something small. Treat it like your secret weapon, because it is working for you, even when you are not speaking. It is preparing you, even when you feel slow. It is building your future voice, quietly. And one day, that voice will come out, clear, natural, confident. So let me ask you something. Are you ready to use listening as your superpower? Generate Chapter 6 in big paragraph style. Chapter 6. Make mistakes without fear. There is one thing that stops more learners than anything else. It is not grammar. It is not vocabulary. It is not time. It is fear. A quiet, deep fear that sits inside your mind and tells you, don't speak, you might be wrong. And slowly, without realizing it, you start listening to that voice. You become careful. You become silent. You start checking every word in your head before speaking. And because of that, you stop speaking at all. If this feels like your story, I want you to listen very carefully. Mistakes are not your enemy. Mistakes are your path. Yes, your path. But from the beginning, many of us were taught the opposite. In school, mistakes meant something bad. Wrong answers meant low marks. And slowly, our brain learned one thing. Mistakes are dangerous. So now, when you try to speak English, that same fear appears. What if I say it wrong? What if people judge me? What if I look stupid? And because of these thoughts, you choose silence. But silence feels safe only for a moment. In the long run, silence keeps you stuck. Because no mistakes means no learning. No learning means no progress. And no progress means the same frustration. Again and again. Now I want you to imagine something different. Imagine a person who is not afraid of mistakes. This person speaks simple sentences. Sometimes wrong, sometimes broken, but they keep speaking. They try again. They improve slowly. And after some time, their sentences become better. Their voice becomes stronger. Their confidence becomes real. Now ask yourself, who will improve faster? The silent person or the one who makes mistakes and keeps going? The answer is clear, and this is your turning point. You don't need to avoid mistakes. You need to use them. Because every mistake is a message. It shows you what to fix. It shows you what to learn next. And when you accept this, mistakes stop feeling painful. They start feeling helpful. Let me tell you a simple truth that many people don't understand. Fluent speakers are not people who never made mistakes. They are people who made thousands of mistakes and kept going. This is a powerful retention moment for you. The more mistakes you make, the faster you grow. Yes, it sounds strange, but it is true. Because mistakes mean you are trying. Mistakes mean you are using the language. Mistakes mean you are learning in real time. And real learning always includes errors. Now I understand something important. Fear does not disappear in one day. You cannot just say, I will not be afraid. Fear is a habit. And like any habit, it changes slowly. But you can take small steps. You can start in a safe space. Talk to yourself, record your voice, speak simple sentences when no one is around. And slowly, your comfort will grow. Then, when you feel ready, you can speak with others. Not perfectly, just honestly. Let me share something very simple, but very powerful. People are not thinking about your mistakes as much as you think. They are busy with their own thoughts, their own fears, their own life. Most of the fear you feel is inside your own mind. And once you understand this, you feel lighter. You feel free. You realize that you don't need to impress anyone. You just need to express yourself. And that changes everything. Now let me give you a simple mindset shift. Don't say, I made a mistake. Say, I learned something. This small change in thinking removes pressure. It creates growth. It gives you courage to try again, and again, and again. Because improvement is not one big jump. It is many small corrections, step by step, day by day. And every time you speak, even with mistakes, you are moving forward. Let me say something directly to you. Your broken English is better than your silent English. Feel that. Because broken English can grow. Silent English stays the same. So choose growth. Choose action. Choose courage. Even if your voice shakes. Even if your words are not perfect. Because perfection is not your goal. Progress is your goal. And progress comes from trying, not waiting. So from today, I want you to give yourself permission. Permission to be wrong. Permission to sound simple. Permission to learn openly. Because that permission is freedom. And freedom is where real learning begins. One day, you will look back and smile. You will remember your mistakes, not with shame, but with pride. Because they were the steps that brought you here. So let me ask you something honestly. Are you ready to make mistakes and grow faster? Chapter 7. Build a simple daily routine. There is something very powerful that most people ignore. It is not a secret method. It is not a special talent. It is something very simple, but it changes everything. That thing is routine. Not a big routine. Not a perfect routine. Just a simple daily routine. Because the truth is, your results do not come from what you do one time. Your results come from what you do every day. Many learners feel excited in the beginning. They watch videos for hours. They try to learn many words. They feel motivated. But after a few days, that energy disappears. Life becomes busy. The routine breaks. And slowly, English disappears again. This cycle repeats again and again. Excitement, then silence. Start, then stop. Hope, then frustration. And this is not because you are weak. It is because you don't have a simple system. Motivation can start your journey, but only a routine can continue it. So now, we change this. We don't depend on feelings anymore. We build a simple daily routine that works. Even on bad days. Even when you feel tired. Even when you feel lazy. Even when you feel like doing nothing. Because your routine will be so small that you cannot say no. Let me show you what this looks like. You wake up in the morning before checking your phone, before starting your day. You say 3 simple sentences in English. I wake up. I feel okay. I will practice today. That's your first step. Simple, clear, powerful. Then later, maybe in the morning or afternoon, you take 5 minutes to listen to something simple in English. Not something difficult, not something fast, just something you can understand a little. You listen carefully. You don't rush. You don't try to understand everything. You just listen and let your brain absorb. That's your second step. Then at any moment in your day, you speak again. Maybe you describe what you are doing. Maybe you talk to yourself. Maybe you repeat one sentence from what you heard. That's your third step. And that's it. No pressure. No long hours. No heavy study. Just a simple daily loop. Speak, listen. Speak again. And this loop builds your fluency. Now your mind may say, Is this really enough? And I understand that question, because we were trained to believe that more time means more progress. But listen carefully. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. Doing something small every day is stronger than doing something big once in a while. This is a retention moment you need to remember. A small daily routine can change your life more than a big plan you never follow. Because a routine becomes automatic. You don't think about it. You don't fight with yourself. You just do it. And that is the secret. When learning becomes automatic, it becomes easy. When it becomes easy, it becomes sustainable. And when it becomes sustainable, it becomes powerful. Let me tell you something honest. Your routine will not always feel exciting. Some days will feel normal. Some days will feel boring. But boring is not bad. Boring means stable. Boring means consistent. And consistency creates results. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't feel excited every day, but you still do it. Because it is part of your life. Now imagine English becoming like that. Not something you try to do. Something you just do. Without thinking. Without pressure. That is the goal. And that goal is possible with a simple routine. Now let me help you see yourself in a new way. You are not someone who learns English sometimes. You are someone who practices English daily, even if it is 5 minutes. Even if it is 3 sentences. Because daily action creates identity. And identity creates long-term change. When you see yourself as a daily learner, your actions become stronger. You don't skip easily. You don't quit easily. Because this is now part of who you are. Let me also say something important. Your routine does not need to be perfect. Some days you may miss a step. Some days you may feel slow. That is okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is return. If you miss one day, come back the next day. No guilt, no pressure. Just continue. Because progress is not about never stopping. It is about never giving up. And every time you return, you become stronger. So from today, I want you to build your simple routine. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today, speak 3 sentences. Listen for 5 minutes. Speak again. That is your system. That is your path. And if you follow this slowly, quietly, your English will grow. Not in one day. Not in 1 week, but day by day, step by step. Until one day, you realize something amazing. You are not forcing English anymore. You are living it. And that is the moment everything changes. So let me ask you something. Are you ready to build a simple routine and follow it daily? Chapter 8. Think in English, not translate. There is a quiet habit inside your mind that slows you down every single day. And maybe you don't even notice it. You hear a sentence in English, and before you understand it, your brain quickly moves to your own language. You want to speak something, and before your mouth opens, your mind starts translating every word. And in that moment, everything becomes slow. Your thoughts stop. Your confidence drops, your sentences break, and you feel stuck again. This habit is called translation, and it feels helpful, but it is not. In the beginning, translation may help you understand a few things, but if you keep using it all the time, it becomes a chain. It holds you back. It makes English feel like a puzzle you must solve, instead of a language you can feel. Let me explain this in a very simple way. When you think in your own language and then translate to English, your brain is doing double work. First, it creates the idea. Then, it searches for English words. Then, it checks grammar. Then it tries to speak. This takes time. And during that time, your confidence disappears. But when you think directly in English, everything becomes lighter, faster, natural. Because there is no middle step. There is no delay. Your thought becomes your sentence, and your sentence becomes your voice. Now your mind may say, but I don't know enough English to think in English. And that is a normal feeling. But listen carefully. You don't need big vocabulary to start thinking in English. You need simple words. Very simple. Let me show you how this works. Look around you right now. Don't translate. Just name things in English. Phone, table, room. Then make small thoughts. I have a phone. I am in my room. I sit here. Simple. Direct. Clear. No translation. Just English. At first, your brain will try to go back to your own language. That is okay. This habit has been there for many years. It will not disappear in one day. But every time you bring your mind back to simple English thoughts, you are training your brain. You are creating a new path. And slowly, that path becomes stronger. Let me tell you something powerful. Thinking in English is not about big sentences. It is about small, fast thoughts. Very simple, very real. When you wake up, you think, I am tired. I need water. I want to sleep more. These are natural thoughts, and you can say them in English. This is how you start, not with long ideas, with small feelings, because your life is full of small moments, and those small moments are full of English. Here is a strong retention moment for you. Fluency is not about speaking fast. Fluency is about thinking without translation, because when your thinking becomes direct, your speaking becomes easy. No pressure, no overthinking, just flow. Now let me be honest with you. At first, it will feel slow. You may stop, you may forget words, you may feel like your thoughts are very simple. But that is okay, because simple thinking is strong thinking. Simple thinking builds speed. Simple thinking builds confidence. Once your mind becomes fast with simple thoughts, you can slowly add more. But the foundation must be simple, always simple. Let me also share something important. When you stop translating, you start feeling the language. You don't just understand words, you understand meaning, emotion, tone, and that makes your English more natural, more human. Because language is not just words, it is feeling. And feeling cannot be translated perfectly. It must be experienced. So from today, I want you to practice something very small, but very powerful. Catch your thoughts. Notice when you are translating, and gently bring your mind back to English, even if it is just one word. Even if it is just one sentence. That moment is growth. That moment is training. That moment is change. And if you do this daily, something amazing will happen. Your brain will start choosing English automatically, without force, without effort. And that is when you will feel a new kind of confidence. A quiet confidence. A natural confidence. The kind that does not come from knowing everything, but from feeling comfortable. And comfort is the real goal. Because when you feel comfortable, you speak freely. And when you speak freely, you improve faster. So let me ask you something honestly. Are you ready to stop translating and start thinking in English? Chapter 9. Turn your environment into English. There is something very simple around you right now, but it has more power than any book, any course, or any long lesson. It is your environment. The place where you live. The things you see every day. The sounds you hear. The small moments you repeat again and again. Most people ignore this. They think learning English only happens when they sit and study. But the truth is very different. The fastest growth happens when your environment starts speaking English to you, even when you are not trying. Right now, your environment is already teaching you something. It may be teaching you your own language again and again. It may be showing you the same words, the same sounds, the same habits, and your brain is learning from it automatically, without effort, without thinking. That is how the brain works. It learns from what it sees the most. So imagine this. What if your environment starts showing you English every day? What if your phone, your room, your daily life slowly becomes English? Then your brain will start learning English, even when you are not studying. This is the simple way. You don't fight your environment. You change it, and it starts working for you. Let me show you how easy this can be. Look at your phone. You use it every day, many times a day. What language is it in? If it is not English, then you are missing a big opportunity, because your phone can become your teacher. When you change your phone language to English, something interesting happens. You start seeing words again and again. Settings, messages, call, battery. At first, it may feel strange. You may feel slow. But slowly, these words become normal. You don't need to memorize them. You see them daily, and your brain remembers. This is learning without pressure. Now look at your room. You have a chair, a table, a door, a window. These are not just objects. These are words. You can say, "This is my chair. This is my table. I open the door." Simple sentences, real things. And when you connect words with real objects, your memory becomes stronger, because now, English is not just in your mind, it is in your world. Let me tell you something powerful. Your environment can either slow you down or speed you up, and the choice is yours. You don't need a perfect place. You don't need to go to another country. You can create your English world right where you are. Even small changes can make a big difference. Listen to English while walking. Watch simple English videos. Read small sentences every day. Speak to yourself in your room. These are small actions, but together, they create a strong environment. And that environment supports your growth. Here is a strong retention moment you need to feel deeply. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your environment. If your environment is full of your old habits, you stay the same. But if your environment starts changing, your habits start changing too, and habits create results. Now let me share something very honest. In the beginning, you may feel uncomfortable. Your mind may say, "This is too much." You may feel confused, but that is normal, because you are changing your space. And change always feels strange at first, but slowly, it becomes normal. And once it becomes normal, it becomes powerful. Let me give you a simple idea. You don't need to change everything in one day. Just start with one thing. Maybe your phone. Maybe your daily listening. Maybe speaking in your room. One small change. And then slowly, add more. Because small changes are easy to keep. And when you keep them, they grow. Now imagine your life after some time. You wake up, and your phone is in English. You hear English sounds. You speak small sentences. You see English words around you. Without realizing it, your brain is living in English. And that is the secret. You don't need to go somewhere else. You bring English into your life. And when English becomes part of your life, you stop feeling like a learner. You start feeling like a user. And that feeling changes everything. Because now you are not chasing English. You are surrounded by it. And when you are surrounded by something, you become part of it. So from today, I want you to look at your environment with new eyes. Not as a place you live, but as a tool you can use. Because your environment is always teaching you something. Now it is time to make sure it is teaching you English. So let me ask you something. Are you ready to turn your environment into your English teacher? Chapter 10. From Practice to Confidence. There is a moment in every journey that feels almost invisible, but it changes everything. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is slow. But one day, you notice it. And when you notice it, you realize you are no longer the same person. That moment is when practice becomes confidence. At the beginning, everything felt difficult. You were thinking about every word. You were afraid of every mistake. You were slow. You were unsure. You were asking yourself again and again, "Am I doing this right?" And that question created pressure. But now, something is different. You are still not perfect. You still make mistakes. But you are not afraid like before. You speak, even if it is simple. You listen, even if you don't understand everything. You try without stopping yourself. And this is confidence. Not perfect English, not big words, not fast speaking. Confidence is this quiet feeling inside you that says, "I can try. I can speak. I can improve." This is real confidence. And it does not come from one big moment. It comes from many small actions. Day by day, sentence by sentence, effort by effort. Let me tell you something very important. Confidence is not something you wait for. Confidence is something you build, and you have already started building it. Every time you said 3 sentences, you built confidence. Every time you listened for 5 minutes, you built confidence. Every time you spoke with mistakes, you built confidence. Even when you felt slow, even when you felt unsure, you were growing, you were changing. And now, that change is becoming visible. Here is a powerful retention moment for you. You don't need to feel confident to start. You need to start to feel confident. Because action creates belief, and belief creates identity. Now, something new is happening inside you. You don't see English as something scary anymore. You don't feel blocked like before. You don't feel that heavy pressure. Instead, you feel a small flow, a small ease, a small freedom, and that freedom is your reward. But this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a new level, because now, your job is not to start. Your job is to continue, to protect your habit, to stay consistent, to keep showing up, even when no one is watching, because this is how confidence becomes strong. Not by doing something once, but by doing it again and again, until it becomes part of you. Let me ask you something honestly. Do you remember how you felt at the start of this journey? Confused, slow, maybe even hopeless. And now, look at you. You understand more. You speak more. You feel more comfortable. This is progress. Real progress. And you created it. Not with magic, not with talent, but with simple daily actions. And this is the biggest lesson you need to remember. You don't need a perfect system. You need a simple system that you follow daily, because simplicity creates consistency, and consistency creates confidence. Now let me share something that many people forget. Confidence is not a destination. It is a practice. You don't reach it once and keep it forever. You maintain it by continuing your actions. So even when you feel good, keep practicing. Even when you feel confident, stay consistent, because growth never stops. And that is a beautiful thing. You are always becoming better, always learning, always evolving. And that journey makes you strong. Let me say something directly to you. You are no longer the person who was afraid to start. You are someone who practices. You are someone who speaks. You are someone who is growing. And this identity is powerful because it will guide your future. It will keep you moving. It will remind you that you are capable. So from today, don't look for big changes. Look for small, daily wins. One sentence, one moment, one step. Because those small wins are building your future. And one day, you will speak English without thinking, without fear, without pressure. And you will smile because you will remember where you started. And you will be proud because you did not give up. So let me ask you one final question. Are you ready to continue this journey and become the person you want to be?